How important is the buy-in from many stakeholders, and how many do you usually need when you sell to enterprise?
Chances are high that one of that guys wants to block you, one is your fan, and there are 3 other people you can maybe convince. And to understand that super fast is part of good preparation, good bonding with your champion, because you can ask him, say, who are the other guys? What is important to them? And because this is hard to research for you, this is much easier if you have a champion who can help you with that. And in that case, again, once the champion says, okay, this one here is super important for me and our account, he will give you answers to prepare the meeting, because buying your product as part of his agenda as well.
What have you experienced is the most effective way of prospecting enterprise companies in DACH?
If you're a very good communicator, call is always the best. But I shouldn't be super salesy here, and I need to be super informed. I shouldn't start with 3 questions, because the person on the other side is used to that, and normally this is a waste of time in this case. You need to create a lot of trust. The trust needs to be in you, not only in your product. And if you overpromise within the sales process, chances are high that you overpromise everything what comes after it as well, right? So you are part of this trust game.
Thank you so much for listening to the first ever English sales podcast for the German-speaking market. Before we continue, I want to make you a promise. I promise that with this show, I will do my utmost best to bring in the guests and share the stories that help you succeed in the DACH market. But I can only do so much. So, if you hit the subscribe button, I can get more guests, bigger stories, and better insights to help you succeed in your sales job. So, with no further ado, sit back, relax, and let the show begin. Florian, what do you think is the key difference in selling to enterprise in DACH compared to other markets?
So I think, first of all, selling to DACH and selling to enterprises are 2 super important things to mention here. So selling to enterprises is definitely a big difference than selling to non-enterprises and to small businesses, right? But if we are focusing on the DACH part, I guess talking German is always super crucial. If you have one person in the process who is not very comfortable with his English on the customer side, and I guarantee you there will be one, then it's hard for the person to follow the process, and maybe he will block it then just because of this uncomfortability. And the other thing, I guess, is being super sharp with your numbers and not that American, right? It's not like over promising a lot, because people in Germany normally, or in DACH normally, don't like that, and they will find it out within the sales process, and then it will be a deal blocker super fast, I guess.
I guess with this, because I recorded an episode with Ibrahim about negotiation in DACH, and he said, just do the work. Literally, be professional. Don't worry about like the small talk slash, trying not to get to the point. Like, get to the point, be professional, show the numbers, etc., etc. But with that, obviously, I've heard trust is such a big thing. How do you tackle that in enterprise when it's so about business and data and all of this? How do you develop that trust?
Yeah. So I think that's a super important part, because you're selling in most of the cases, or I normally sell something that is not existing, right? Because you can't have it in your hand. And selling that to people who need trust to buy something, and normally are afraid of buying something that will maybe affect them badly in their own career. So I will definitely agree what Ibrahim says. You need to create a lot of trust, and I guess the trust needs to be in you, not only in your product. So that means if you say, "I will come back before the weekend," on Monday is definitely too late, and even Saturday is too late. Or you say something like, "Sorry, I said I wanted to send it over before the weekend, but it's so important for me to send it you before you start your working week. I did it on Saturday," right?
Mm.
Being honest and kind of stand your word. And this is maybe what Ibrahim said is about do your work. And if you overpromise within the sales process, chances are high that you overpromise everything what comes after it as well, right? So you are part of this trust game.
So let's start at the beginning. We have a seller trying to reach out to the German-speaking enterprise world. Where do they have to start to book the first meeting?
So I guess it's always about finding the first people who wants to spend a bit time with you, right? So and normally you do not start as a seller. You're not the first person who is in this market of your whole company, right? So start where you used to be or your account used to be successful. For example, if the first client you signed in Switzerland is a kind of mid-sized logistic company, the first companies you will book meetings with in Germany are mid-sized logistic companies. So start in Germany where something that worked out in other regions. This is what I would advise here. Because then your reference, and that creates trust as well, as we used to talk about, your reference is much stronger. Because on the other side, the person is not thinking about, another region, another size, and another economy. No, I guess that will not work out for us, right? He thinks there's kind of trust in there, and you can use it as a seller.
So would you say that if you're trying to expand into the enterprise market in DACH, you would look at mid-market companies and then take the same industry, the same, maybe even a small competitor, and then go to enterprise and say, hey, by the way, this is what we've been doing? That's a really good idea. I've never done that, Florian. And now that you say that, I feel like I've missed out on so many opportunities.
We should have talked earlier, right? But so I think this lighthouse thing works in two dimensions. The one thing is if you used to close an enterprise, if you did Lufthansa, right, you do not have to tackle Airbus next, but you can look at other companies who are the same size or in the same area as Lufthansa is, even though their business is something completely different, right? This is how, for example, Celonis did it. So entering one super big account and then understanding or kind of starting the process with other super big accounts. But you can even be in the same industry, as I said, starting with mid-sized companies. So if you do the super small ones, even in the same industry, that will not work in enterprises. But if it's kind of the half of the size or at least 20% of the size of the account you try to aim, I think that will create trust. Yeah. More than other things, at least.
And I feel like the golden question with enterprise is, does cold mail, cold call, or social selling work the best because in enterprise you always have 15 people that you can reach out to and you're just not 100% sure because the titles are similar and you're like, who is the person? Should I just cold call? Is that faster? But then do you get through, etc., etc.? What have you, based on your experience, what have you experienced is the most effective way of prospecting enterprise companies in DACH?
So first of all, you said that there are 15 people part of the process that you could reach, right? Why is that? Why isn't that an advantage? Because if you kind of try to win one of them and having that person as a champion, he doesn't need to be your sponsor. He just like helps you to start the process, to get to know the other ones in the end. And if this person likes you, you're much step further than before, I guess. So I would see this 15 people and this super big a process as an advantage. But it takes time. Means like bonding with this person based on a cold call, on a mail, whatever, is always based on the person needs to like you and needs to understand what is in for this person. Even though it's maybe not his business, there is a high chance that this person, if he understands or she understands that you know what you're talking about, and that could be beneficial for someone else in the in his organization, that could be a good thing for him as well, an open door to walk through, right? And on the other hand, I guess if you're a very good communicator, a call is always the best, because if the both of us have 5 minutes of an interaction, of a communication, the bonding factor can be much higher. But I shouldn't be super salesy here, like, right? And I need to be super informed. I need to know what is in. I shouldn't start with 3 questions, because the person on the other side is used to that. And normally this is a waste of time in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. You touch upon a point that I feel like is growing, like the awareness towards that is growing, and that's authenticity. Authenticity in sales is key, especially when it's such an overloaded market. Like everyone is being outbounded every day so many times, especially if you're a CEO, CFO, etc., etc. So being authentic makes you stand out. And especially with a cold email, cold call, I feel like social selling is just up and coming if the person is on LinkedIn or on social media. But for me, it was always cold calling. Cold calling was my golden goose. I loved it. Emailing, I went freaking nuts, but like quantity wise, not quality wise, I have to admit, at some point, especially with enterprise. And that's the part that I want to touch upon. With enterprise, when you put 15 people in a cadence, guys, and you send everyone a very similar email, those 15 people will talk to each other. Exactly. And 10 of them might reach out and say, can you please stop harassing my colleagues and myself? That did happen to me a couple of times, and I'm a bit ashamed of it. But if you don't talk about it, you know. So if you have 15 people, right, would you then start with one? Or would you still reach out to everyone, but differently?
Yeah. So there are different opportunities about that in the market. And because I'm a big fan of this selling authentic, for me, there's only one right answer, and that is each one super individual. And so I would never approach many people in one account at the same time, because as you said, my goal is that one of them will introduce me to the others, right? Because it's like he sees an opportunity about that. He's kind of ambitious about it, right? He's your fan, and then he finds out that you tried the same thing with other guys. So
Yeah.
I would not like to continue with the process, to be honest. I wouldn't do that. I would stop it here. And once I would do that, I can't like think that other people or the person on the other side wouldn't do the same, right? This is why I would never approach many people, even though the chances are high that I will not reach out or will not reach that person. But then I can continue with the next.
2 questions. The first one, the preparation. I feel like if you say you want to reach out to 15, but you start with 1, how much time would you usually spend on preparing for the reach out? So I know people, if there's like super personalized, I take about 20-25 minutes for an email, right? If I do that times 15 and I might not reach anyone, that is obviously, time is money in sales. That's a lot of time. Like, how do you recommend that, especially with tools nowadays, softwares, including Syntinels, that it's just freaking mind blowing how you can save the time?
Sure, but if we are not talking about tools, if we just talk about the daily work of an enterprise seller, okay? So let's say I'm an enterprise seller. I used to be an SDR for 3 years. Now I'm an AE, and my target is adding 1 million ARR a year, and that is a big target, right? Let's imagine that. Let's assume that. Normally in enterprise, my landing is like 100K something. That is less than a deal a month, and less than a deal a month, this is my 100% quota, right? And if we break that down to how many people I need to kind of win for my approach, I would say it's about 100. 100 a year. So that means 2 people a week. And imagine how much time can I invest in researching that and creating an email. I would say, even if it's an hour, and there are 2 people in the end I can win with that, because the response rate is so high. And in my case, for example, it's 50% sometimes, 30% in other times. So it's super high, because if you're so specific about what you want to do with them, they become curious. And in that case, I would say, even if it's an hour, if the result is that 2 people per week like what you do and want to sponsor you and want to enable you with a follow-on process, then 10 will buy in the end, or maybe let's say 8. So I wouldn't think about 20 minutes, 2 minutes, or an hour. I would think about the results.
Kind of have to think about that right now, because I feel like you said a couple of things that were really good, especially the reverse engineering. The way you talk about it makes me also feel like, hey, if you're working in enterprise, you have to understand the numbers. You have to understand your own numbers. When you start in sales, first get a foot into the door. Just understand what's working, what isn't, trial and error. But as soon as you're in enterprise, understand your own sales numbers. And another thing that you said, especially with the success rate for you, which is freaking phenomenal, do you have a formula? Do you have a type of email or a type of, like, this is my first sentence, this is my, when I talk to X, then Y is happening, blah, 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 blah. Like, do you have a formula for that?
So we have, yes, of course, we have. But the best conversions are like, if you really know the customer, the situation of the person on the other side. So you're hopefully champion, and your own assets like references. And this is how I build normally outbound mails. So it's not like it definitely there's a pattern. So there's always a CTA in the end, right? The next step to make it easy. There's always like a something that creates trust. It's a reference that helps the other person to understand that he's not the first person I try to make it by, right? And there's in the best case a social proof in there as well. But the rest is like, I think that is not that much moving the needle. And there are so many people who say like, this mail will convert with 70%, whatever. I don't believe in that. I think it's more about trying to feel what is right for the person in on the other side. Is it someone who likes numbers? Is it someone who just like wants to create something with you, right? Who is super curious? That really depends on the beta on the other side. And that is something that you can definitely check much faster in a conversation than in an email. But in my case, I would always think about, is it the right moment to approach this person and to approach this account based on something that changed there where I can build my USP on, right? And then it's about the research and about the super personalized email in the end. But the first step needs to be done while understanding, can I create value for them or can't I do that? Because if you can't, and you're super authentic in your sales approach, you will come to the kind of to the step in the process where you see that doesn't make sense to sell to them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. It's not about selling, it's about to whom. Is that the right person right now? You speak about that in a little bit more detail, especially about the email structure and stuff in your masterclass, which I've found super fascinating, seeing also different tools, etc., etc. And I come to that in a second, but I'd like to move on in the sales cycle. Let's say, okay, cool. You have the first meeting, you got your champion sorted. Sweet. Dave is your friend and he is introducing you to the whole team. And there you have a new meeting and there's like 15 people on there. How important, number one, is the buy-in from many stakeholders, and how many do you usually need when you sell to enterprise?
That's a very good question. And I think this is where the magic really happens, right? Because on the other side, there are, let's say, 15. So 15 is really like, that's a big meeting. Let's say five, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say five.
Okay.
But in the end, chances are high that one of that guys wants to block you. One is your fan, and he brought you in, right? If there is not a fan, you will never attend this meeting. And there are three other people you can maybe convince. And to understand that super fast is part of good preparation, good bonding with your champion, because you can ask him, so who are the other guys? What is important to them, right? And because this is hard to research for you, this is much easier if you have a champion who can help you with that.
Mhm.
And in that case, again, once the champion says, okay, this one here is super important for me and our account, and in the end, like first me and the account, he will give you answers to prepare the meeting, because buying your product is part of his agenda as well.
Mhm.
And I guess then it, for me, and this is what I train a lot with our AEs, is giving all of that guys the feeling that they are part of the meeting and not just like
Yeah.
nicking.
Yeah.
Include them. Ask them, hey, Dave, awesome, I know you already, but Helena, so what would be a 10 of 10 for you in this meeting? How do you think about it? What is your agenda, right? And then you are part of it, right? And note it down. And the last 5 minutes of the meeting, I come back to that and ask you, Helena, so you told me this three things needs to be ticked. I would say these two are ticked, right? We talked about it. When shall we maybe jump on a short call to talk about that topic as well? Because we didn't take it today. And then you're included, you're part of it. And chances are high you will not block the process, even though Dave is already pushing it. So your question, is it important to win many stakeholders? Yes, it is. And even more important, to make the people not block it.
How do you find out who the blocker is? Like, I mean, obviously, unless there is a obvious, well, I disagree with you fundamentally, and I shall block this behind your back. But usually they're like, huh, okay, all right, let me have a think about it, or something like that. And then they're in the meeting behind your back. It's like, nah, no freaking way, we're going to buy that. So how do you find that out, and how do you turn that around, other than understanding the agenda and stuff?
Yeah. Normally in an enterprise, no one will say it in your face, right? No one will say like,
Exactly.
I don't like it, right? And I don't understand it. And I don't like you, so we will never buy it. This is not
That
what
would be
happens.
so nice though. So you can know right away. You're like, thank you. Now I know.
Thank you, and delete. Delete it.
Exactly. Oh
But,
no, the internet.
so I think mm, mm, there's always a reason why a person is blocking that. For example, he is part of the process that is in place that needs to be changed, and he doesn't like change. Then you need to make him feel that the process is not changing for the bad, right? And that you cover all the kind of pitfalls in it. Um, the other thing is maybe the person is just like, yeah, could be that the person does not like you, right? Then he's sitting sometimes like this there, not talking proactively,
Yeah.
more like asking the asshole questions. I think you can find that out.
Yeah.
And I think, as I said, it's not important that everyone pushes the process. There will be people who are like, it's okay if we do it or not, I don't care. But the blocker is like, he's really like that's a red person. You need
Yeah.
one green, no red, and some in between, and I think
Yeah.
then chances are higher that you can make this deal.
You said a very, very good point that I feel like is a game changer and not many sellers are using it. That's the body language. So let's just say Dave is our friend. Barbara is the person who is blocking us. And he's like, Barbara, I saw that you moved back. Or I saw that, I see you're crossing your arms. What's happening? Talk me through your thoughts. That has saved deals, like that has saved my deals so many times, just because you address the elephant in the room. And everyone knows, the team knows Barbara. She might not like a lot of people. So rather than just ignoring it and trying to get the other people on the side, just address the blocker right away is an absolute game changer. I once did that in a deal when I was like a CEO. Freaking not. The first question he said was, Helena, I'm going to be honest with you. I do not see any value in your solution. I'm only here because HR wanted me to be. So you do your best. And at the end of it, and that's not because of me, but it's because listening to the body language, it's the frowning, it's the crossing arms, it's the moving back. It's even when you see ladies usually do that, crossing their legs, that already is a sign of a reaction. There's a reaction. It's super, super, super interesting. I shall now stop crossing my legs. So
maybe it's a sign of me. I should maybe change something here in this discussion.
Yeah, maybe. Florian, komm jetzt hier. Nice. I think with that in mind, usually people have that stereotype of CEO is going to sign the papers. And I used to have that at the beginning as well. Have you, and that might be a dumb question, because usually when you ask, so talk me through the decision-making process, who's gonna, who do we need to join in the meeting? Have you ever found that at the end of a call, and I had that once, which was so frustrating. It was a 6 months, usually our sales cycle was 3 months. It was a 6-month sales cycle. They told me they will sign it off. And then it took another month. And then they said, yeah, nah, the CEO doesn't want to sign it off. And I'm just like, but you told me you're the one to sign it off. Oh, and I went back again and again, trying to understand, where did I go wrong? How did I miss that? Do you feel like in enterprise, usually CEOs are the ones who sign it off and people just need to be aware of it? Or how is your experience there?
So I think in all organization there are CEO-ish people, right? Sometimes they are not the CEO, but they have the power of a CEO. Like, so the biggest organization I used to sell to used to be Microsoft. So it's a super big organization, and the COO was part of the process. And it was a 20-minute meeting with him in person. I used to stand up at 4 a.m. to prepare the slides, because the meeting was super quick, because my champion said, okay, we need to have this person in the process, this person in the loop. And this is maybe the point I want to bring to the table. He said that to me the evening before. He said, like, that deal value and that implication and the whole data shit, we should get him in, right? So that was the COO, but I think, like, in an organization like this, there are enough people who can make the decision, if it's not about trillions. But my champion helped me with that. And I think in your case, so, like, I don't want to blame you, but in your case, your champion was maybe afraid to tell you that he is not able to make it without the CEO, and then the CEO blocked. And I think this is part of a sales process to really ask that. So are you really the person who can sell that, who can sign it? I think, like, you can ask this question at least super valuable, right? And if you see then your champion is not willing to bring the real decision maker in, and the process takes more and more and longer, I think I would stop it from your side and say, okay, we're so, like, you used to be too desperate in the end. And being desperate against enterprises is the biggest killer.
Yeah. I think you have completely rewritten my narrative of what I had of that one deal that is really bugging me until today, and that's like 3 years ago. Maybe they were afraid of me. Maybe it was the Germanness that scared them away. No, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. Gosh, now I have to go through all of my my deals right now and just make sure that I'm not scaring. We're laughing, but actually, it is so true because you don't want to embarrass yourself either. You don't want to say, yeah, by the way, I know we spend so much time, but I still have to get someone in, so I'm so sorry, etc. I like that is so true. So it all comes down to. Oh, sorry, yeah.
So, and I from my perspective, so I'm definitely not the CEO of Microsoft, but I do this CEO-ish thing sometimes as well. Want to be part of a decision, even though other people know it better than me, but then they are maybe not that convinced to include me, and I block it. And so it's like the same thing in 10,000 higher dimension in the enterprise you try to sell to, and you need to address that fast.
Yeah.
If not, it will be a bad experience for all of you.
Yeah. Also, just saving time, I think, is such a key part. As much as enterprise takes longer, usually, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually enterprise takes a bit longer in terms of sales cycles, etc., depending on what you sell as well, and how much it costs, etc. But you waste time if you don't sort that out ASAP. Like me, just learn from my mistakes. With that in mind, though, time. In your masterclass, you mentioned something that really got me. You say get 50% more done in less than 5 minutes. Can you explain that to the audience and to me, please?
I do not remember that I said that. So
You had
help me with that.
you had a lesson called get 50% more sales success within less than 5 minutes. I think it was about the preparation. It was about, look at this, look at that, do this, do that. And then you have more success faster. Do you remember?
Got it. I remember. Yes, of course. Um, good.
Otherwise, don't worry, we can skip that part as well.
I'm good with that. So I guess like in enterprise sales, the whole thing we used to talk about is understand whom to sell to and what is the value, what is in for this person, and then transfer it on a not that salesy way so the other person feels like not I sell something, but he can buy something, right? And this had a lot to do with the situation of the company, of course, but with the situation and the personality of the other person as well. And based on that, I used to create a framework that normally works always, not because it's a pattern in the email, but it's a pattern in the research frame. And I think you do not find everything about the person and about the enterprise, but so try to know everything about an enterprise that is existing for more than 100 years. You will never be done with that, right? So stop researching that much, right? I said sometimes it's important to invest an hour, or you could invest an hour in an awesome email, but in the end, it's like sometimes you just like correct and double correct a point or something, right? So this will not move the needle in the end. It's more about having the feeling that 80% of what I write here addresses the person on the way he likes to communicate. And to do that, for example, I'm using Human Linker to understand the person on the other side and his characteristics, so that I can play my sales game based on the way he likes to communicate. And this is something I guess makes sometimes 50% success within less than 5 minutes.
That is amazing. Guys, I'm gonna link number one, Florian's masterclass, obviously, in the notes, but also Human Linker, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also link that one so you can check it out, try it, use it. Also be 50% more efficient in less than 5 minutes. With that in mind, I feel like in enterprise, and now let's move on with the next stage of the cycle, right? We have the first meeting, we have the overall discovery, we kind of identified our decision maker, we identified the blocker, the champion, etc., etc. And now we finally get to the juice, we get to the negotiation, to the part of you have uncovered all of the value. You have, like, literally they're ready to buy, and now it's all about price and then potential, most likely negotiation. Are there specific tactics or strategies that you follow when negotiating in enterprise, or would you say actually human is human, it's always the same?
So it's very good that we are talking about that, because I think that was back then my biggest potential to implement tactics, because we lost many deals in that stage. So with my current company, and when I used to be a seller as well, because here it comes from awesome bonding and kind of understanding the person on the other side, including all the people. Like, everybody feels great now, but now it comes down to the real numbers, and this CEO-ish person, or even worse, CFO-ish person, looks at the deal and decides, like Julius Caesar, right? Go or die. And in that case, I guess these super rational arguments are important, and you need to shift to emotion, where you bring the other person in this uncomfortable situation to really decide something. And this is something people in enterprises are not that used to, right? So there is an effect, and we used to joke about it a lot. It's called Teflon effect. And Teflon effect means sometimes in enterprises there are people who just like climbing and climbing over years, because they do not do critical decisions. And a critical decision is always buying something that is not McKinsey or Microsoft, right? So like something where the product market fit is not proven 10,000 times, right? And I guess in that situation, I lost many deals, because I did not shift in this a bit sales mode. I used to be the friend of the potential seller, of the prospect. I did a lot for him, but then I wasn't hard enough. I was desperate. And even though that was the biggest deal, and for me, it would be life-changing to get it, or at least quarterly changing to get it, the person on the other side should never feel that. Never. Because then he's in power, or she. And if that happens, you're fucked. So the hardest and most important thing in negotiation is just like, okay, let's make it, or let's break it here. Both okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the biggest issues of, if sales was a character, that would be a character flaw. Putting yourself in a needy situation. I know, like, a lot of people keep on saying, we're not doctors, we're not saving lives, everything is gonna be okay. But sometimes it feels like it. Sometimes you already think about what you would buy with a commission and what superstar you'd be in the next all hands, because you get the shout out because you hit the target, or blah 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 blah. Getting away from that and just seeing it as it is. It's a transaction. If they don't want to pay for it, then they don't get it. Full stop. I also found what's quite useful, and that is the hardest silence I have ever imagined. And I have done Shakespeare on a big stage before. The hardest silence is once you say the price and they don't say anything. Just leaving that silence and not trying to over, it's like, yeah, but this will also include da da da. And with that, obviously, you're nervous. You really, you want them to go for that. So the silence is, I feel like, one of the key things that I also had to learn, to have the confidence in saying, this is what it's worth. Leave it or take it.
So as I said, I think I'm not a born expert in that. So there are people who are intuitive, so much more intuitive in doing that. I think that's this super shocky thing, right? And it's not the person normally who is super empathetic and so on. But to come to that point, you normally need that person. So for example, as Signavio did it, Signavio is a company who used to be sold for 1.1 or whatever, a billion to SAP. And there was one founder who was the person who was just like creating the vision with the enterprise prospect, right? And the other person was just like, okay, guys, this is a calculation, this is the price. So where's the problem? So
Yeah.
here you can sign it or you don't.
Yeah.
And both of them are needed in this kind of process, in this whole process. And none of them could make the deal that efficient then together. And I guess sometimes it's super good to bring a closer in, or you could like trying to bring other people from your account in, as I do it currently, for example. When there's a big deal, I normally bring customer success in, and then like I want this deal. And I say to my champion, okay, I will bring all the resources in right now, right? They have much better things to do, but they do it for me. Um, and this is our timeline. And this is the point where we want to start. And we are talking about this point where we start. We're not talking about the point where we are signing. And after the CS left the call, or we have the next call, I say, okay, there's just the signing to do. And then you create the silence, right? And so I think trying to reverse this thing,
Yeah.
it helps me at least in these
Yeah.
situations.
I love that. I love that you don't make it a thing. It's part of the process. But the end goal is not signing. The end goal is a successful customer. I did a episode with Kara about customer success as well, where we both very much agreed on sales and customer success working more together because it's a game changer. You said, I still have so many questions and I see the time. You just mentioned the closer. Bring the closer in. What would you say are qualifications of a closer? Like, how do you
So
know this is a closer in your team?
what are qualifications of a shark? So it's like
Hmm.
being straight to the point and
Mm-hmm.
clear, and strong, and not the friendly guy. And
Mm-hmm.
very awesome sellers can do both of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And switch. So bring the closer in was more like bring another person in so that you can become the closer. That
Yeah,
is my
yeah,
solution in the end,
yeah,
because I can't, like, I'm when I'm the CEO and I'm talking about an enterprise deal, I can't bring, I don't know, my AE in and say, okay, he's the closer now, right?
yeah,
That is not working.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe do it the other way around, but this is not scalable as well. So you can be the closer and the friendly guy as well once another person jumps in this friendly guy role. So this is how we do it right now.
I love this. I think with the, bringing the closer in is literally just bring the last puzzle to get the close. I think that's a really good way because otherwise people put themselves under pressure and then they change from friendly to no, now we have to talk about business and then friendly. And that's kind of odd. So that is a really nice reframing of the narrative of saying you're a shark when you can also be a dolphin and you shall win.
I'm not sure if a dolphin can close deals. Um, Maybe at least just super small fish deals in the end, right? But in the end, you need to be bitty, in that phase. And this is not like this is how sales normally is. And so sometimes I look at in HubSpot, I look at the time I invested in a deal and the people I brought in from our account. And if it's about 25 hours, like I think, okay, I really deserve this deal.
Yeah,
And this is then the mood I start the call with. Okay, guys, we have 20 minutes. So
yeah,
what are your topics? I have one topic, and that's a contract, right?
yeah,
Saying that's okay because
yeah,
we do not do this process to become friends. We do this process to become partners, and
yeah,
part of that is a contract.
yeah. So now they want to sign the contract, right? They say, sweet Florian, we definitely gonna go for it. We love you. We love the company. Let's do it.
Mhm,
Now procurement comes in. And now
mhm.
it's the final checks, the legal checks. This is the key part that I feel is quite different to mid market or small companies. When enterprise is like, so now you're gonna talk to IT and legal. Um, two questions. The first one, let's start with the first one. How do you keep the momentum when after the negotiation everyone was fine and then nothing happens, or you feel like nothing is happening over the next 3 weeks, and you just don't know when it closes because legal needs to cover all of the bases, the MSA, etc., etc.
Mhm.
How do you keep the momentum?
First of all, you said sweet Florian. So none of my enterprise accounts said that so far, and none of that said I love the product or I love the company. But like, if you would have that situation, I think the champion is super convinced in the end, right?
Mhm.
And when procurement comes in, for everybody, it's so their target is to create minus 10% on the deal and better terms, right? This is their this is this is their role. They are the challengers in the end. And if it works good, the champion is more on your side than on the procurement side, right?
Mhm.
Because his incentive is what happens after the deal is done, right? Because he buys it for his process. And this is why I would play this person as well. So I ask normally, okay, guys, how is your procurement process going?
Mhm.
So how long is it normally going?
Mhm.
What about legal entities? What about the question they normally ask? Do you have someone in the procurement officer, dear lovely champion, who is friend of yours, who could maybe help us to look on this deal right now to start the process before we signed it? All right.
Yeah.
So to make it fast, because we want to start on the 1st of January. And if I have the signing within in November, we will do that. But if it's December, we will not do that, right?
Mhm.
And if the person on the other side, your champion, says, then okay, then let's start on in February or in March. So you nearly lost this deal, right? Because it's not urgent, and you can't make a deal more urgent if the person on the other side sees not the urgency in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if he does, then ask him for help to prepare this procurement process. And once you know, they ask for a discount of 15%, and the payment, when we offer yearly, they ask for monthly, and we will end up with quarterly. Then we maybe should start with a 2-year contract that we want to sign, and they will bring it down to a 1-year contract. So that could be something what is good enough for procurement,
Yeah.
and in the end my target. But we started with 120% to land the 100%. When I land with the 100%, I will come so it will end up in 70 to 80%, right?
Mhm.
So in the end, prepare this procurement process with your champion, then you will
Yeah.
end up with a good deal.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point, especially in enterprise when it is about, it will take longer. And as soon as you know you have the buy-in of the champion asking, hey, what's happening? Like, how about I send you the MSA over so you can check it while we go into the final negotiations, just to make sure that we can start in your timeline, like make it their problem rather than your own. Florian, I
Make
see
it
the time. Mhm.
make it not their problem. Like, address it that fast that it will not become a problem for the schedule that you have together. Maybe that's more the frame, because I don't want to shit on the table of my champion, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Good point. You should not do that. um, I see the time. I feel like I need to invite you again for another episode because there's so many questions, especially with the regulations, and I feel like the audience will ask that as well. But I no, we are running out of time. Just one last question, which I ask all of my guests, just to make sure that everyone who listens to this episode knows exactly what to do once they stop listening to it. What would you say are the 3 exercises or tasks that someone can do literally today to improve their sales and enterprise?
Got it. Look at your current pipeline and check where your bonding with the champion is lower than 9 of 10, because you will not make this deal, or you will bond much faster, and better. So work on that. The other thing is, if a champion is not So in your pipeline is not where it's not urgent, right? Say, I like you, I love your product, whatever, but let's start whenever. Ah, so maybe you shouldn't forecast this deal too high, I guess. And the other thing is, when there is a process where you think that a closing role you need to jump on a closing role within the next kind of weeks, bring someone else from your team in the next call so that you are prepared to take this Sharky role.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Guys, if you want to see the full masterclass, you can find it below. Florian, it has been an absolute pleasure. Next time we'll talk more about regulations and the whole fun stuff that everyone is afraid of. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. See you soon.